Hello everybody and welcome to Rocket Lasso Live episode 16 of season 4. How is everybody doing? We've got some people over on Twitch already. I see Dean is on the ball and already has a question posted for me. Excellent. I'd like to see that. So what's on the agenda today? Regular stream. I did a bonus stream yesterday for Patreon people where I was trying to plan out some of my upcoming SIGGRAPH presentation for Maxon, and some people in the chat helped me come up with a topic, so that should be fun. The current plan is to do a tips and tricks video, but specifically in the topic of the Voronoi fracture. So instead of general tips and tricks, it's going to be a whole bunch of different fun stuff just with the Voronoi fracture. So looking forward to that. Let's see. Nifty's saying you're getting a bad connection. How is it coming through for everybody else? Is it just Nifty or is it everybody? But yep, hello everybody. Hey, Les is hanging out on YouTube. Welcome. I don't think you make it to too many live streams. Welcome. Welcome. Anyway, let's tackle Dean's question. Everybody start getting questions together. If you want to put it on YouTube, you can't put a link, but you can type out a question. If you want to put a link to something inspiring that you saw or something you have a question on how to do it, then you should probably head over to Twitch. Just search, Twitch and Rocket Lasso. You'll find it right away. And of course, being subscribed for free on Twitch means you get an email notification every time I go live, which is the way I would always find out people who I followed were streaming via an email. So it was always pretty handy. So start putting those links to things. Make sure I can see via the link. I have to be able to see the studio or artist who made it. Otherwise, if I can't give credit, we're not going to tackle it. And if it's a long video, make sure you're calling out the specific effect or time code that you're interested in. So let's check out Dean's question, which is how would you make this branding iron effect? So let me turn on the proper screen. Click the link, mute the tab, drag it on over, and let's see what we get. Oh, we get a commercial. We'll let the commercial go by first. Skip ad. Boop. Okay, so we got some real life stuff. This is from Jimmy Destra. But yeah, it looks like they have essentially a stamp, but it's made out of metal. They heat it up in the fire, and then they're pressing it in, and they're getting multiple things. First of all, you're getting, let's wait for focus. That's kind of in focus. But presumably they're pushing this into leather. It looks like leather to me. The stamp obviously has some really nice pattern in it. I'm not sure what kind of pattern's on the general leather. We're not catching the light super properly. Yeah, but even there you can see that it's not super shiny. It's hard to get a frame in focus. That one's okay. But yeah, let's take a look at how we might go about doing this. There's multiple ways to think about it. Zimzim, welcome as a first-time chatter. Elaine, thanks for the heads up about the counter and Twitch needs to be updated every time the time zone changes or the daylight savings happens. It probably gets off by an hour, so I'll try and keep that in mind. In fact, I'm going to put that in my notes so I remember. Anyway. I can think of multiple ways that we might approach this. You could do an entirely material-based approach. We could do a Boolean approach. We could do a a volume builder approach. There'll be a lot of polygons, but it would totally work. You could fake it just with a bump map or a displacement, or you could actually do real geometry. You could do model swaps on it. And then there's the question of, are you just stamping one time? Because I feel like 99% of the time, if you're going to be branding something, you're just branding it one time, which is very different from what we saw in the video where he's stamping again and again, or even sort of imagine you have a rubber stamp and you're pushing it in again and again. And let's say you want it to appear every time. Those are completely different rigs, probably almost entirely unrelated in what they do. So yeah, that's a little bit more tricky if we're thinking of it along those lines. Even though, I guess it would be the bool, doing it with a bool would enable us to do it in a very simple way as far as textures are concerned, because it'd be separate geometry, and the stamp will be blocking the actual effect. So it's kind of like everything that's happening is going to be happening hidden behind the object. So it kind of popping into existence is extra easy because of the nature of that. So if we make this pretty thin and design a stamp, I suppose. Let's see, 64, height of 20, and text would have to be actual geometry, but we could start out with a spline, which seems like a good idea. Set it to the middle. Set it to a flat orientation. And let's type in Rocket Lasso Live. And what's a good, here, let's get like a Rockwell, so it's a little bit kind of a cowboy-esque font. And then I guess it's also kind of like a high school jersey type font, but still, this one, regular Rockwell. I like that. Okay, so then we shrink it a bunch, probably around there. Let's view it from the top and deform this. The simplest way would be, I guess a good way, I hadn't really thought about it this way. I was going to use a bend, but if we make an arc and we shrink it and get the correct orientation, there we go, and increase the radius to whatever. In theory, we should be able to make a nice simple spline wrap. Not shrink wrap, but spline wrap. Put that into the text. It's got the correct orientation already. Drag in the appropriate spline. That's going to appear on it. It's upside down. Is there a good way to do it? We do have from and to, so I should be able to just reverse that. Yeah, so reverse the from and to. And you'll see on something like this letter E, how it's getting deformed quite a bit. So if we didn't want that, we can subdivide the text a bit more. Easily done with a subdivide mode, although I think we have seen there be like a bug in there, but it seems to work this time. 0.2, even 0.2 is not giving us too many subdivisions. 0.1, yeah, I think that the text spline is bugged because that's not fixing it, but we actually we can't fix it via maximum. We can't fix it via the angle because that is straight at the time it's being calculated. That does change. Why is it 0.1? 0.01? Yeah, it's not, I feel like it's not applying properly. I guess I'm just not going to worry about that. I mean, if we made it editable, we could probably put it in the mode that did work. And if we used the upcoming utility spline, we could make that work. But, you know, it's good enough for now, especially if we're zoomed out. Now, the length of this text is going to be based on the length of the spline. So it's going to be important to make sure you kind of scaled everything the way you want to make it look appropriate. So, you know, something about that looks right to me. Text-wise, perhaps a little bit more horizontal spacing. Keep in mind that's going to squish everything down, which probably means we want a little bit more arc. So that, in the end, becomes a single spline. I'll put into a connect. I don't think it's strictly necessary, but that shall at least bake it down. And then I would like to extrude upward. I feel like we should be seeing something. Oh, the connect. The connect isn't returning it. Turn off weld, perhaps? Yeah. Okay, turned off the weld. Now we can extrude. Oh, maybe we can't extrude. Oh, no. Oh, okay, that was... It must be really subdivided. Oh, okay, okay. I'm going to take back a couple of the things I just said. I think that this spline is actually incredibly subdivided. And do you know why this looks not very subdivided? It's because the spline that's cloning onto, the spline that's being deformed onto, you can see that that is low poly. So that was my mistake. Let's put the maximum length back to 1. Doesn't visually change here. But now if we go to the arc and we subdivide that more, then now that gets smoother. So let's jump that up to something a little bit more. And now it looks heavily subdivided. And now we can extrude. And now you can see we got a significantly more reasonable point count. Okay, cool. Anyway, I always set my direction. I know they have the auto mode, but the auto mode, more often than I would like, gets it wrong. So this gives us a bit of text. It doesn't have to extrude up much. Do I have... it'd be kind of neat if we brought the logo in as well, just to make something a little bit more complex. So let me see if I can track down the Rocket Lasso logo vector. Nico, thank you for subscribing through Prime. Where do I find this? Under... I'm on a different screen here. Under Graphics... Rocket Lasso Vector Logo AI. Boop. Let's see what this looks like. Good enough. We'll grab this and select those. UW, UI, delete, select axis 0, 0. So that should zero that out pretty well. And now let's zero out its actual world position. Cut, close, paste, rotate. Backwards. Whee! T for scale. And let's spin the arc around so that the rocket has somewhere to escape from. That can go into the same connect and get extruded the exact same way. So, you know, that just kind of works. Let's save it into episode 16, scene files. Yeah, the specifics matter here a lot because you can imagine different versions of this where like you actually wanted the iron to be burning red. You can imagine smoke coming off of it. A lot of different versions of that. These are not things I'm inclined to super tackle right away. Or you know, we shouldn't put those there unless kind of a client specifically wanted them. So set the height to 10. This entire extrude can move up, not much. It should be pretty subtle, so maybe 2. Yeah, that just sticks up a little bit. And if we're inclined, which why not, let's actually combine these properly. You never know if a bool will be happy, so I will hit save there. And now we want A, it doesn't matter the order because we're actually saying A union B. And that seems to have done a fine job of combining. Something I might do would be giving a couple of cap segments just so that there's a couple of extra rings. So like it makes your geometry cleaner. Like the end, instead of the n-gon stretching super far, there's a couple extra subdivisions for that to deal with. So, and Elaine is correct that we are drawing this properly, but eventually it's going to get inverted. So very good point. Actually, yeah, we're at a good step to do that. So this has now become a single clean piece of geometry. Now, you would probably want to get some nice bevels on some of these things just to get the rounding and get the highlights. So why don't we do that? We can do it with our extrude. So caps, we only need one of them. So I don't start end. I think it's going to be end cap. Let's do just one. Yeah, okay, that rounded it. So let's say 0.2. And honestly, I think we can get away with a single subdivision. So I think that's fine. And if we're going to be no, n-gons are a good idea as a general rule. So we will leave it like this. I'm still kind of feeling like we don't need to. I'm going to offset it even less, so it's just barely poking up by 1. What are you doing? Oh, what? I'm hitting reset transform instead of enter. There, it just pops up a little bit, and that should be a nice clean piece of geometry. If I fly inside, you can see that, actually that doesn't seem right. Oh, we want a start cap. I guess it's fine. I didn't want to extrude the start cap, but what I should have done is not turn off the start cap, but turned on separate bevel controls. And now the start gets 0, and the end bevel gets some size. So now you can see that's properly looking watertight on the inside. So we're trying to keep it relatively clean and low poly. We're getting a lot of subdivisions on these curves, so it's not too late to fix that, where I could say actually that's every 10 degrees. You know what, is good enough, and it didn't like something about that. You can see that the cap got messed up here, so I'll just put that back. Extrude. What did I break? Why is it different now? Look, this is broken, and it wasn't broken before. Changing one of those seems to have... One of these seems to be flowing the wrong direction. The normal of the logo is flipped for some reason. I might be able to select all, right click, and point order reverse. No, that didn't fix it. I don't know why changing the angle percentage decided to break that. It also seems to have pushed everything down into the ground a little bit more, doesn't it? Let's turn off the... I mean, that looks correct, except this is backwards. Now we could separate it out and fix it individually, but why? What would cause that to happen? Yeah, see, it doesn't mind that. So the plan is I'll make a duplicate of the extrude. One will be for the logo, the other will be for the text. Now you can see that it correctly is handling both of them. Go figure. And then so the Boolean works correctly. Both of those can be fed inside a single connect. And we don't need it to weld. And now the bool can be turned on along with the cylinder. And now it's back to... Oh, weird. The height seems to have changed. That's interesting. It should be really, really simple stuff. I'm not sure why we're getting some of this trouble. So our arc is flat on the ground, but somehow the Rocket Lasso logo ends up a little bit in the air. And this extrude must also, and the connect. Yeah, the connect, all of those end up 1 unit in the air, go figure. I probably clicked something wrong at some point, but dropping that down, and now selecting all these points and dropping that down, still flying. Turn off axis. Okay, now they're all lined up. Now they're all on the ground. Now we get the separate extrudes. Now they should be the same height, and I can now say that they should all be 1 up into the air. Okay, sorry about that. Little detour. Okay, should be 1 model. So, as Elaine mentioned, when this gets pushed into the ground or into the leather, as the case may be, it's going to be inverted. So if it's going to be inverted, we need to stop it from being inverted. So my thought here is I like doing this type of thing parametrically. So if we put this into a cloner and make a linear 1, so now there's only 1. Oh, come on, why? What? Why did the text suddenly pop back down again? Oh, I know why. Because this needs to be moved up. All right. It's still a little frustrating, but essentially I was telling the entire physical geometry to move upward, but then later after a refresh, the spline wrap was referencing the arc, and the arc is like, well, but I'm still down at 0, not at 1, so it would pull it down. That's why that was happening. Okay, good to know. Anyway, we put this into a cloner, and now it's a clone of 1. And don't do any offset. But under transform, I would like it to be negative on one of these. And it should have now, it's just making it a scaled negative clone. But the reason I like doing this via a clone of 1 is we didn't have to do any scaling. So all I have to do is turn off this cloner, and we can make changes to it looking at it correct from our point of view. And we turn on the cloner, and now we get the inverted version. We should be. Is it? Let's put the, I'm going to group that, and inside let's put the arc as well, because I think the arc might again be getting referenced external to it. So if it comes along, yeah. No. Why? Rocket Lasso's text is looking correct no matter which way I flip it. Like, it's still correct, and if I mirror it, it's still correct. It seems like the whole thing's just rotating. Isn't that odd? I don't want to make it editable. That's very strange. I am confused. Okay, there we go. The connect fixed it. When in doubt, put into a connect. Let's make sure that it's not going to like do some sort of refresh. Yeah, okay, so it's not popping out. So finally it is mirrored. You can see that the text is finally backwards. Okay, okie dokie. So now that that is working, thank you, connect object, we can finish this kind of up as a brand. And honestly, I even want this cloner to now be treated as a connect. So we'll, again, bake that down. So it's just like, okay, now I'm just a piece of geometry. That gets spun around 180. And if we're getting fancy, we can put a stick on there. Whoop. Okay, cool. Let's put a slight bevel rather on our cylinder. It can have 2 segments and a radius of 1. Yeah, 3 segments. Okay, so just a little rounding on that as well. Why not? Excellent. Okay. Okay. So, with all of that being the case, now let's see if... Apologies. Let's Boolean out a copy of the brand. So that is now a brand. Making a instance of it. We now have a instance of the brand. That gets put into a group, and we can rename it brand plus handle. And a brand new bool box to intersect. That can go down, I don't know, -2. Oop, that was a bool. Box -2. Yeah, just down a little bit. Maybe you can go further as long as it's still intersecting. So now we have this instance, which is referencing the original one. So if I feed A, subtract B, then with any luck, if we hide the original, we've now got this taking a bite out of it. And it still is backwards. Okay, if that is backwards, why would that be backwards? Wouldn't the brand mirror things? I would think it would mirror it. I'm going to temporarily tell it not to mirror it, and it should propagate through there. Okay, it is still backwards even if I mirror that. So do we have to mirror it on multiple axes? This is proving trickier than I thought it would be. I thought this would be incredibly straightforward. The letters are backwards, and it's reading backwards without any mirroring. See, I'm questioning the mirroring. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Like, is the cloner not properly mirroring things? If we turn that off and look at it from below. Wait, oh yeah, it's not mirrored right now. So if we say, yeah, mirror it. Is it not mirroring again? I thought putting in that connect object fixed it, but you can see now that the text is not inverting. I want to be able to make changes to it. Just to, if I were to make that editable, you can see, yeah, look at that. As soon as I make it editable, it does mirror it properly. But if I hit undo, the text, yeah, making that editable gives a different result than if it's not been made editable, which is a little annoying. I mean, there's other ways we can potentially fix it, but why would it do that? I mean, the spline wrap is, I mean, I kind of want to blame spline wrap. Like, that could be by itself causing us a lot of the trouble. And there's probably some sort of refresh that it does, is my guess. So, I mean, just to save us some time, I'm going to make a duplicate of the text to make that editable. And the instant I make that editable, it looks like it did indeed mirror it properly. Having done that, now let's turn back on our Boolean, and now let's look up here. And there we go. Now it's readable and mirrored from this side. Now we're getting some Phong issues. Now it's supposed to hide new edges. Let's create Phong breaks at intersections. See if that, it's not doing a great job of fixing it. The Phong on these individual things, this one's probably, I'm going to set the Phong mode to manual on this connect. And then I think we put a Phong tag. Yeah, we can put a Phong tag on that, and now it's now taking on the properties of the Phong tag, saying that there is a limit. Otherwise, it's making it super smooth. Now there is, we got these, which are kind of bad polygons because it's kind of an inverted. You see, it's a quad where it got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, but this one you can barely see because it's so dark. But there's like a flap. There's like this overlapping flap, which is what's causing that to happen. What I would like to do, I guess there's not a reason not to. I was trying to keep it entirely parametric for easy changes, but the cylinder, we could give it a better cap type. Let me show you what I mean. If we do make, and you know, just in case we need it, I'll make a duplicate, turn it off. We can make the cylinder editable, and we can grab a loop selection here, fill the loop, and delete. And now we can use the new, what is it called? It's not fit circle. Is it just closed polygon hole? There might be a new mode in fit, so it was MD, closed polygon hole, and you can set it to grid. So now if I click to close this hole, you see we're going to get this lovely little grid closing it up. So now we don't get all those crazy little triangles, and this could be a better shape to be feeding through. So that's the hope. Having done that, let's reactivate. I guess it's all fine. Let's just turn this back on again, and let's see if it's happier with the bool. Well, it fixed one of them, but now it created another one here. The we might be able to fix it just by saying don't hide new edges. No, still doesn't fix that. Oh, bools. I mean, this is, it makes, sense what's happening, but I would like to fix that. Even having said that, I kind of wanted to get a second bevel on this outside, but that's a really difficult one to get. Should we try? If we can, I would like to. I know we're being kind of meticulous, and this one's being a bit of a pain, but let's see if we can. So here's a thing I would like to do is get a second bevel. Let's see if I can design this properly. It's the toughest type of bevel to get. Why is that not hiding? What am I doing wrong? Oh, this connect is bringing it back. That makes sense. Boop. Okay. Anyway, here's what I want to do. I want to make this end of our extrude, which we already separated out. Let's give that a, I don't know, 0.3. But can we make that go outward? Is there only, oh, bevel outside. That's a little... No. It looks like the setting I want isn't individual here. Tobias, you're right. We could have used the remesh on the cylinder. That would change the profile of it a bit, presumably, but that would have done a similar thing. For me, I wanted to show off the new cap type. I want this to bevel outward instead of inward, and I think we can say that by saying bevel outward. And then if we had the settings proper, and I don't know which ones, we could get it to do it. But the controls to activate that are outside of the individual controls, so I don't get the option to just do it to one of them. I have to do it to both of them. So that's not cooperating super well. There's no way I can get a parametric bevel, and even if we make it editable, which, you know, I'm trying to avoid wherever possible, it's not going to do a great job there. I wanted it to be low poly. So much of this would have been way easier if we were using some of the new settings in the volume builder, but then we'd be creating so many polygons, and there'd be so many polygons in these complex text shapes that I don't think the volume, I don't think that the remesh would do a very good job of fixing it. But that would be giving us the curve that I want so easily. It would be a lot of polygons, but if it's just a single bevel, then maybe that would work. Yeah, I'll save this again as another file, and let's try it with this alternative method. It's not going to take too much effort to get there, because all you have to do is essentially get rid of this bool. So goodbye bool. You shall be replaced by the volume builder with a pretty dang high resolution. Put that straight into a mesher, and we've already got the text punching through pretty well. You can already see what a ridiculous resolution we're going to need here. 0.2. Yeah, okay, so we start getting this crazy dense mesh. That's already blobbing in a little bit, even more than I want it to. 0.1. Start. Yeah, okay. So you can see now that we get this rounded bevel, which we could push even a little bit further, give another segment, so that should round that out a bit. And then we've got this connection. Now you can see that there's already a little bit of natural rounding on that connection because of the fact that it's a blob. But now we have this additional setting called radius here, and we can put in a number, which is our big number right out of the gate. Is there a way of, I know we can double click or right click and say 0.2. There we go. Let's try, right click 0.4. And what that should do is start, giving us a smooth curve into that shape, which is pretty much what I was going for. Right clicking 0.5 should be fine. Now the question is the remesh going to be able to handle this shape at all? Now, I don't even want to drop this in the remesh. It is not going to be able to handle it. But if we save it and go to our remesh, and even if we do 1% adaptive, I think it's going to get rid of tons of the polygons. And I don't know how far we can push it. We don't want to like lose too much of it, but you know, it starts putting us into the range where maybe the remesh could maybe do something. But you don't want to lose these edges. So like I feel like that's as far as we can go. Still an awful lot of polygons, but let's see what the remesh can do. I'll save it just in case. Remesh. Mesh density, I don't know, 25% of what we're currently seeing. Go ahead and make it as adaptive as you want. And it's chugging along, but what I've found when I throw in a complex mesh, especially something involving text, is we get to about 75%, which is right where it went. And then it kind of feels like nothing happens. Now, it might be succeeding. I just want to leave it for a little bit and see if it can actually do something. But I've also had it kind of finish, and it gave me like not a good result. Okay, it did finish. It's a lot fewer polygons, but you'll see that it's like, okay, the rocket logo looks pretty good. But then if we zoom up on this text, we get like kind of like this funky corner right there. I'm not the biggest fan of that corner. I mean, depending on how far away we are, this could be fine. It does feel like we lost a lot of detail. But you know what, let's say it's good enough and let's see if we can keep on going forward with it. I mean, I guess we could, I don't want it to take too long to calculate, but we have 25%. If we go any lower, we're going to lose the resolution. But I will say, I'm going to give it like 100% adaptiveness here, which means maybe it'll put less polygons on this big flat grid on the edges, and it might apply more to the edges of the text. So let's just see if it can handle that. But yeah, it does go to, there are limits to what the remesh can do. But getting that nice rounded bevel, that like inner bevel, I don't even know what you call it, like the bevel from the coin shape to the text, is an incredibly difficult thing to have cinema do out of the box. So using this volume method seems to work pretty well. It definitely put more polygons around the text and less here, but it can only get rid of so many. And actually it made this T even worse. Yeah, that's not great. Just for curiosity, because why not? Let's learn. I'm going to turn adaptiveness down to 0, because I'm wondering if like something like that sharp edge happens because of the low or because it's trying to be adaptive and be smarter. So if we just say, hey, just put an even poly count everywhere, what will that do? If it mattered, this would be a good situation to use a flow spline where you might be able to put like a big circle around it so that the orientation of the polygons would be very much following that circular pattern. I don't think it's strictly necessary for the Boolean operation that we're going to be doing. Yeah, you can see that there's less resolution on the letters now, but it didn't seem to break them as much. But you know what? That could be coincidence. So who's to say? But let's just call this good enough. It's a little bit rougher, but it could look cool. So, okay, that becomes, nothing's changed. This connect object isn't strictly necessary anymore, but that's fine. We'll still mirror it with that cloner. I'll still bake it down as its own model. Again, turn the handle back on. This should all be following through just fine. For some strange reason, I've been seeing this a couple times in cinema. I'm not sure what causes it. I thought putting it into this connect would fix it. But do you see how it's like this weird transparent blue? I was seeing that earlier, and I'm not sure what's causing that. But anyway, let's visually hide that. The instance should still be correct. So let's try boole-ing that out from our sheet. And it's chugging away. Obviously, it's not going to like all of these crazy subdivisions. See, here's another issue. Do you see how it's like the remesher decided to recalculate? It's like, why nothing we just did would call for the remesher recalculating. So why is it recalculating? Boop. Well, it did eventually finish. And we can see that we got the nice inverted text coming through. It's actually, I guess, a little disappointingly, we've dropped the poly count so much. You saw how long it took to do the bool, but we dropped the poly count so much that now our rounding seems kind of janky, which is not something that we really want. Yeah. It's interesting when one of these seemingly straightforward questions ends up being so tricky. Like, I mean, depending on the texture we put in there, it could be fine, but I was trying to make it very clean. I'm trying to think of if I could do a Boolean trick. That could work. I have an idea of something I might be able to do to get, I don't know if it'll work, but I'm curious now. We're already down the rabbit hole. Let's go a little bit further. I'm going to go back to the previous file, which is why I saved that as a new one. And let's step back. It looks like I hadn't saved that one all the way through. So this is before. Oh man, yeah, I hadn't saved that in a while. So we have, I guess we can try Tobias's point and see if I can feed the cylinder into a remesh. And that should, yeah, actually no, it didn't turn it into a grid. It's still trying to follow the general polygon flow. Like, yeah, it made these a little bit more even, but it actually did not fix the problem. I thought it would. Anyway, it's all good. The main point here being that MD grid close. Okay, so we get that back again. I think everything should be working. Now we need to backstep just a bit to here and hide that. Okay, so my thought is, what if we make a second extrude? That's on the logo, but even that could be fine. So here's the thought. If I take this and say, okay, no start cap. So you can see this is just open now. So now if I take this, how much are we extruding here? We are extruding 5. Actually, we would only want it to be like 2 now. So only an extrusion of 2. Now turning this one on, I would move it up 2 or minus 2. So it should, in theory, be starting at the same spot. Actually, I want it to be offset of 1. And we'll just have to figure out. Right now there'll be a little bit of spacing. We'll just have to figure it out as we go. So, caps, bevel outside. Whoa. I'm not sure what that is all about. Bevel outside, and we are, look at that. Obviously not something that we want. 0.1. 0.001. Nope, still explodes out to maximum infinity. Very much not working. I mean, keep in mind, the only thing I'm doing is taking this shape and saying bevel outside, and then it's super exploding. And I mean, in general, that's a pretty clean shape. The spline, I don't see like a lot of intersecting points or anything. Surprisingly tricky. surprisingly tricky. I'm not even sure if anybody knows what I'm trying to do, but essentially I want a bevel shape like what I've got here, and then push down further, and that's kind of our inverted bevel. But obviously we want the original silhouette to be correct. None of these push outward. Bevel on side, man. Yeah, bevel on side just not working. I mean, we can just skip over this part, but I just really wanted that bevel. Now, I mean, there are a handful of other things that I guess it could work. It's not what I want to do. If we bring back the original one and we make an instance of the spline, and then we sweep the spline with a end side, radius probably 0.2, and give it 4 sides, and you can see how I'm getting this this diamond shape, and because it's based off the same spline, it's all the polygons are matching up. I don't know if the Boole's gonna like that. I don't know at all. And then we're probably gonna get some ugly crisscrossing on these corners. So if I did that, it's not gonna be able to handle these bad crisscrosses. It's just like a fact. We could drop the curve count on the original one. Like if I say 15, there's gonna be fewer. You see there's fewer polygons. It gets a, but now we're losing resolution. It will do a better job in the corners, but even this corner is still, you see messed up. So, still a problem there. Having lowered it, if we put the first cap back on, you see we get this cap back. Now we'd have to do a completely separate Boolean operation on just these two pieces. Boole, A, union B. So in theory, these have combined, but I bet you, okay, if we go inside the shape, it's going to look okay from this spot. You can see up here, we get this nice channel going, which is what I want. But if we go to what I assume is like one of these problem areas, like the corner of this one, I have to imagine that, yep, see that? That's no good. And we can't take a boole of a boole with this type of thing hanging out on the inside. It'll break everything. And if we, of course we can put this back in a volume builder, but that puts us back to stage, that puts us back to square one. Well, all of this is just because I want effectively this shape, which is like a lot of extra work. At this point, I guess I'll just say, fine, we just won't get that aspect of it, in spite of I want to get that aspect of it, but I just don't think we're going to get it. So let's just go back again. We'll set this back to 5, and we should be pretty much able to just reactivate everything. And this is the brand. That's the brand plus handle again. Save over this one. We haven't lost anything. Create that instance again. Hopefully all the flipping text nonsense was already fixed at the point where we're at here. And make a boole. Make a lovely boole. A, subtract B. So, nope, it's not inverted. In order to do that, before we made this text editable, not super difficult, editable. Okay, so now it does properly invert. and the bevel why one second, what are we seeing here? I mean, that looks correct here, right? We get this nice bevel. This is an instance of the final geometry. We should also fix that Phong issue. So that should be just seeing this as a single mesh. And now we subtract it out. But where'd our bevel go? A subtract B, bool A union of A and B. You see, yeah, I don't even understand what we're looking at here. Man. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but this is proving to be disproportionately difficult. Let's go inside. Okay, if we go inside, you can see that we've got a problem where this geometry is clearly not doing the correct bool. Now, oh, no, that's correct. A union B, so that should be this bit of geometry. That's all fine. Things are turned off correctly. And this is the one that we made editable. And this one's turned off, so it just shouldn't exist at all. So why does it feel like these aren't... Oh, okay, there's the mistake. That needs to be there. That was the problem. Slightly wrong spot in the hierarchy. I'm not sure when or where I did that. Bloop. Okay, there we go. Of course, now I kind of forgot that I wanted that nice bevel, but we're back to having this inverted polygon, this bad polygon issue, and it could still render black. We're just going to ignore it and keep moving forward a bit because, you know, we got to move on to a different question. So trying to get a kind of a thin brand, like I only pushed in a little bit. So at this point, it just becomes texturing, which should be bools. Bools do a good job, I think, of passing textures through because it is creating two objects. So it's almost like it is, you know, it should just kind of work. The point here being, I don't think I have, I don't have the GSG textures installed. Let's see if, I don't remember if there's any leather textures in the, actually, we might not even find them. Redshift, leather. Okay, well, we got two different types of leather here, so why not? In fact, we've got a brown leather and a black one, if those work. Hopefully they do. So let's pull them both in. Okay, load, please. Okay, you can't drag them in. That definitely should be a feature. But now they should be loading in. They probably have a decent resolution associated with them, so we got to wait for them to work their way on in. So the original shape should get one of the leathers applied, and the brand should get a different one applied. Now we're only looking at the brand here. If we apply the material onto the instance, that should technically work. And what I think that we probably want to do, there's probably better ways to do it, but if we do a flat projection, so let's turn on our material window. If we do a flat projection, we can get pretty much the leather perfectly projected flat up onto it. And it's just going to take on that shape overall. And why don't we even reproject it the same way onto this one? So they have the same projection, they're just both flat. And now if we do the bool, then now we've got this dark black leather pressed in. Let's take a quick peek at the brand. There is okay, well, here's what the brand ends up looking like, and you get a nice light area. So that's implying an area that was way recessed, which is not something we built in, but we could do that, I think, pretty easily. In fact, I think they even did it. Look, theirs is kind of the opposite, where you can see the text is light, because what they did is they subtracted it from the original shape. But I think because of the way we built it, we should be able to set that up pretty easily. So instead of pushing out, it should be pushing in, which we can do by, here's that Boolean. So it's A union B, but we'll say A subtract B and rearrange. There we go. So now it takes a bite out of it. We do want the extrudes to get the bevel on the top. So let's put a 0.2 on that. So now it is rounded up there. And they need to be a little bit lower. So let's push these out because it should be decently shallow. And that should, I think that should just fix everything. We just inverted it all. And now that we've done that, we have this brand and we applied this dark material onto the brand. But what I'm thinking is we should texture these pieces individually. So the cylinder, I'm going to copy the material there. The cylinder should be black. And then these sides right here should not be. And what I might do is make a duplicate of the leather. And let's copy the projection and then take this one. And we can redo this one. I'm going to say leather dark. And we'll just eyeball this, but I'm going to jump aside. We got a fairly fancy material. And we got color correct, which is all being controlled, which is all good. If I drag it, this is something I forgot to mention in my what's new in 26.1. But you can see if I hold down control, if I mouse over this, it's actually going to interject it there, which is pretty cool. But anyway, that should all be default settings. But now we can say gamma will be like I don't know, 66. So that should just make this leather a bit darker than the other one. So it's not burned all the way, but it is darker. So with those changes, let's make the bool again, hide the original, flip around, and this material now doesn't do anything. If a child has a material filtering through, it'll automatically be, it'll override. You can only colorize, you can only put a material on a instance if none of the contents of the instance have a material. Not none of them, but only, the ones you're controlling. Okay, yeah, so all that being done, let's save that. Let's spend a split second to make some lighting. Dome light. Maxon did an excellent job of, I'll have to find it, but they put all of the HDRs together. I think it might be under, I remember I have trouble finding. There, okay, under media, under textures, here's HDRs, and here's a bunch of new 16K HDRs, which is pretty cool. After I got this one downloaded, so you can just drag that in. Did I? Okay, I think I did drag it in. It's currently loading a 16K image, so that's gonna take a while. Can I? I would love to favorite this folder so I don't always have to track it down, but I don't know if you can. I don't think you can. I can right click on this and favorite it, but I don't think we can favorite a folder, because I'd love to drag it up to the top so we can find that all the time. We could make, I could do something that would make it be found, but let's not get too distracted right now. Now, some of these materials don't visually look like they're coming through too much, but let's turn on, well, let's save it, and activate redshift. And see if it works. Hey, that's not too bad. So that's darker. That all seems fine. I just want to, well, I mean, a couple things we would probably want to round out the bevel more. We should probably make it more shallow, and then everything, you know, we should make it significantly lighter. So we can do all those things easily. Into our material. So this was the dark leather that we just modified. But you know what? I think I might go into my own color correct node. Let's go saturation scale 0.75. That goes a long way, actually. And then the gamma, I'm going to set to 1.2 to make it brighter. And now in the light brown that we had, let's move inside that one. And again, modify it. I'm going to remove even more 0.5 of its saturation. And we'll make the gamma, I don't know, let's go overboard. Let's say 2. So that should make that one way brighter. And then we've got our dark leather, which is built in a, oh no, we're just in a different spot. It's definitely built differently. I would have thought that those would just be barely different variations of each other. They're quite different. In fact, surprisingly, it's not even feeding in a color channel. All right, well, it's not worried. Oh, it's still going to be very dark, but we might just modify the original one again. But let's see what this looks like. All right, so brighter. That one's a little bit darker. The lighting is maybe a bit bright, and maybe this texture is supposed to be significantly larger than I made it. I feel like it could just be, I don't want it to take forever to render, but the bump seems really, 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 really tiny, but that might be because I applied the material to be like way too small. And an important thing to note is that this monitor's at a crazy high resolution. So the this is going to take like way longer to render visually than it would. I have a lot of the interface scaling up is what I'm trying to say. So this will take like 4 times longer to render than you would think it would, just because of the crazy high resolution we're viewing here. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling like we need to up our projection scale a bit. Pretty straightforward. Let's just grab the relevant materials, which are all on a flat frontal projection, and here's their overall scale. So let's go overboard and say like 500 and see if that looks any better. And if not, I might override the bump of 1 to get the nice looking bumps. I think that's one of the cool looking things here is we get these nice bumps going. It's quite shiny as well. That might be something we want to consider. I also just think we're not quite catching a highlight right here. Yeah, we're definitely not catching a highlight. Let's turn off. I'm just intimidated using redshift during a stream. We've always had trouble. So here's the thought. Let's shrink that way down and see if we can't catch a glint of light somehow. Yeah, because I'm in this warehouse, so like all the bright lights are off to the extreme edge. So to get a highlight, we're going to have to be in this like really low angle. Oh, I've also found that personally, I feel like this image is pretty dim. So like if I double it up, you know, we definitely get more brightness. But let's maybe use a different HDR. Why not? We're exploring. That's the only one I had downloaded, which is a little surprising. That one looks kind of daylighty, like the sun's a little bit higher up in the sky. It's almost 300 megs, downloading relatively quickly. And actually that's happening in the background, so we can continue to do work. But I gotta say, the bump of the leather overall, I mean, we want to see the highlight, so maybe I'm not being fair. It could just be a different type of leather as well, where I kind of want to see this one be shinier. The color and the roughness are being controlled by something. Here's the roughness, which seems to be a scalar. What does this do? I'm not familiar with a scalar ramp. Looks like it's changing the range. Well, that's not exactly what I want. You can finally see the texture coming through a little bit. If these are 16K, I wonder if even the scale I currently have them at is not enough. But anyway, new image downloaded. Let's drag that into our dome line. Start getting the next question ready as well. Feel free to post a question again if I didn't. Or post a question again, because we're going to be wrapping this one up soon. Anyway, new image. That's got to propagate through into the viewport. That's got to propagate through into the image. And we'll see if we can actually get a brighter highlight. And should I'm making that 3 times the size again. I don't know if that's a good idea. It does go to, is there any reason for, in a situation like this, do we need to control the weight and roughness via texture map? I know you can add extra variation that way, but I'm just going to get rid of the roughness. I know we can control it directly. This is the darker burn, but that should be the text that we're seeing here. Not very rough. It should be kind of shiny. And I guess, yeah, where it is catching the highlight, it's kind of shiny. Spin, spin, spin. Oh, I think we're seeing a bit of a highlight there. Yeah, the overall scale seems okay. Inside of the black, let's just modify the bump. Now, it's already got its own little subtle bump in there, which, you know, may be fine. Let's even make a bump blender. So we got a bump blender. But before that, let's just make a noise. We'll grab a max on noise. Naki's an okay leather. But actually, if we're looking at the reference, it looked like kind of like hammered metal. So let's use not Voronoi 2, maybe Voronoi 3. I can't remember if it's 1, 2, or 3. I want the one that's circular. Nope, it's 1. 3rd time's the charm. Okay, yeah, that's the one I want. If okay, first of all, I want to check the scale, so I'm going to override the entire material with this noise. And now we can see the way it's projecting, so all good. Let's go to our input. Overall scale 0.1, maybe even smaller. That has to refresh, and then that refreshes. Yeah, let's do half again, 0.06-ish. Okay, so that's going to be about right for my scale. That can be fed into a bump map as our, it disappeared, input, out, as our base, that's fine. And this will be our layer 0 as the input. This now becomes the actual output. This blender, so there's our base. That's 1 and 1. And you know what? I'm just going to set this to additive. So they'll both completely add on top of each other. Output the actual material. Let's see if we can get a decent bump. Yeah, I'm seeing it. I might have gone a little too small. So, you know what? Back to 0.1. And this bump map is... oh, the scale's real low. So let's jump that to 0.2. That should definitely give us something. Yeah, the bumps are starting to come through. Excellent. And if you wanted to look even, well, I don't want to go too long on it, but we can pull a ramp in, and then we could re-ramp the way those colors are coming in. Input as the alternative input, and possibly I'm going to just flatten out. Was it white on the inside or the outside? Dang it. Our whites, the whites are the high point. So I think I did that correctly. I want these to be, I want the bumps to feel more like little bumps. Right now they're kind of bumping into each other, and this should put a little separation in between them. Filters through, filters through. We'll definitely make them pop a bit more. I think I may want it the opposite. Anyway, it's not very shiny still. Oh, and the roughness on this one, oh yeah, that is kind of what I want to do, but made it way sharp. But anyway, you can see just by remapping that material, like what a huge effect it has. Must be real subtle with that. It's quite rough, and the weight is down. So we're doing all the stuff where there's like, here's a roughness texture going through a triplanar, some sort of re-ramping of it, and a color compositing of it. Like, you know, that's all good stuff. I would kind of like a global control for that, like zoomed out on the material to be like, oh, here's a couple sliders, make it more powerful. It's not the most leathery looking thing. And I wonder if you'd want the edges to be, I mean, we'd have to make it way less deep as well. Yeah, I could spend forever doing this because we're in areas I don't spend a lot of time. But one thing I'd probably do is make this less deep, which I think I could probably do here, 3. Stop. That should be refreshing. Shouldn't it? Yeah, there we go. So just barely poking through. And then even this overall brand should not be as deep. Yeah, so it's a little more subtle like the one we see in the reference. Let's just look at one last quick render here, and then we'll move on. Check in the chat. Dean mentioning that that bools in Redshift with rounded corners node could work. I don't have a lot of experience with those. In fact, I don't think I've ever gotten rounded corners to work, so I'm not going to worry about that. But, you know, Trey's asking for what sounds like a tricky, challenging one. Putting like a fake liquid simulation inside of a car. Intriguing. The bump we added in there goes a long way. What's funny is I do feel like the we would lose the way the materials interacted, which would be a problem. But I feel like these being not as clean would actually make this look better, having a little bit smoother transition between all of them. So maybe the volume of the volume builder technique we did might have been slightly better there. I still want these to be a little bit shinier. Yeah, making the bumps a little bit, changing the bumps here I think would go a long way. And, you know, the leather was red instead of white and everything. But, you know, it is what it is. It's fine. It's cool. But I definitely want to move on to another question. So, let's check out the fake car liquid. See if we got anything. Wait, did you say car? Oh, you said inside a can. I completely misread that. So, this is... Oh, wait. Are you linking to your own... Oh, this was your best attempt with soft body. Yeah, so you're saying you made this and you wanted a better version. Well, you're using a boole, but like I can't think of a great way to do it. I mean, I would probably use a boole as well. You can increase your odds by having very clean geometry, but we just saw how much trouble we had getting that working. I guess just for a very quick version of it, something that could be kind of fun would be, let's use some of the new soft bodies and just let them do their thing. I'm curious what kind of shape we get out of it. So we'll just leave a big old default cube. And how would I like to do this? You know, we could probably do this even a little bit parametrically. This could be neat. If we, I think this might work. If I select this polygon and we use some of the modeling tools, we can semi-parametrically nodes, geometry, modifier, list, small, subdivide. This should be viewing my current selection. And you can see how it just subdivided that side. So I could subdivide again and again and again and again and again. And yeah, so those are all getting smooth. Now it's technically creating n-gons on those corners. So, you know, potentially trouble there, but it should make it pretty easy for us to make changes on that. But the part I'd be curious in is, actually that may or may not work. Okay, bunch of questions I have here. If we add a cloth and I say dresser fix these points, will those points be fixed, but all the other ones are free to move around? I just don't know. Seems dangerous out of the gate, so I will immediately save it. And simulation CPU. Okay, so this should just fall right now. Oh, it did work. Okay, it did exactly what I was guessing it might do. We get these weird bools on the sides, but essentially we'll be ignoring those. Not bools, we get these weird n-gons. But our final liquid would not be intersecting these edges. So what we should hopefully see here is I could subdivide as many times as I want. And you can see that those will do whatever they want, and we've just got it kind of locked in. And the reason this is a cube here is I wanted it to be a volume. So this is actually a pretty nice setup that we have a lot of control over. So controlling or turning off gravity, I would like simple turbulence for now. So let's get a reasonable scale. I'm going to go 55, which might be too much. And it's got some speed to it. Let's hit play and just see what we end up with. A pretty good scale out of the gate. Now, like I said, ignore the corners. Essentially, we're not worried about those. And now we can see we get a lot of, you know, a lot of kind of turbulence going here. It's not super dynamic as far as the angle we're moving to. But let's pull back on the strength here. So there'll be some turbulence here, a little bit of extra motion happening. So then the question turns into, if I make a null, well, let's say, you know, we'll just kind of do a can type thing here. So I'll make a can that is smaller than the overall shape. And let's do a reasonable amount around, only as many as we need top and bottom. And ultimately, what we would be doing is only seeing, well, we'd have A subtract B. So let's create that, the boole. Boole, 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 boole. A subtract B. So then we end up with this as the liquid, and if we were so inclined, this would be the can. I could increase the radius just a hair, and to not make us go crazy, we want to see it. So we'll say other tag, no, not other, render, display, use lines. So now we can see through the can into the liquid. Now I'm going to take the can, whoopsie, I'm going to double click and name that the can. Here is the bool liquid. Let's put those both inside. And now in theory, that's pretty dang clean geometry. This is pretty dang clean geometry. It's all trapped within this box. So that by itself, I'm going to assume is just going to kind of work all right, but you never know. Let's hit play. Yeah, that's working fine. Now, the part I'm kind of interested in is what if we try and shake it around a little bit? Because we pinned, I haven't done this before with the new cloth, but because we pinned these, I'm pretty sure we're free to move the model around. So in the simplest possible way, what if we add a vibrate tag, which will be animation, vibrate, and I would like to randomly shake it around, and we gotta go pretty slow. And let's randomly rotate it around. 30 degrees seems fine. We'll also slow that down. Could be way off on that, but let's hit play. And let's see if we can... Okay. We're definitely getting some reactions to it. The edges are... the can isn't small enough. So we're seeing these kind of exploding edges. But I feel like we are getting a bit of reaction. Let's turn off the turbulence, and so we're essentially only... Let's do several things. Let's shrink the can. Both the cans. So that should, we're seeing less of the liquid. So hopefully those edges don't sneak in. And now all we're seeing is this reacting to the movement. So we're actually, that's not, well, the height. Okay, we're getting more and less liquid because it's going up and down, which, isn't super surprising now that I think about it. But I do like the way the liquid is moving. Couple Boolean problems going on, but, or actually, no, I'm sorry. None of those are Boolean problems. I think it's just the edges escaping in. So if we turn this off, yeah, you can see how these edges are like super flying in. Now, let me think. Okay, let's be reasonable here. Let's turn off that big subdivide and subdivide this whole thing, US, to subdivide one time. Now let's select all the points except for this middle one. And now I'll lock that in, fix the points. So now I've added in this midpoint to each of those, so those won't want to move as well. So now when I subdivide, which we gotta be careful because first of all, we have to select these 4 polygons. It's going to work on the current selection, but it's going to be, I thought it would. Yeah, but because that was already subdivided, it's probably subdividing an extra time, so we don't need it to do that. So just having done that, let's see. Yeah, now you can see these edges are pinned in, so that should stop a whole bunch of the problem there. Now we do still have the overall problem of this whole thing is like splashing up and splashing down. Now, I wonder. I don't mind it splash. Well, I kind of want the edges to be able to go up. If we lock the edges, we're going to be getting rid of a lot of what makes it fun. We could tell it to inflate to its default size, which will try and maintain the volume a little bit more. I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference. The more that the box encapsulates it, the better it would be. Well, okay, what am I trying to say? If we tightened this box up, we could even change the box to a cylinder shape. And we could have it be really close to the edges. Imagine just shrinking this box down so that this point was very close to the edge. I mean, okay, those edges couldn't move too far away from where they are. But kind of part of the fun here is that we're getting more of a reaction. So we'd be kind of fighting those two elements. So I don't know, it could be a bit of a dead end on the concept there, but I think that this anyway would be somewhat a somewhat simple, nice parametric reactive liquid. I'm moving it up and down a lot, which is where a lot of that up and down splashing is going to be happening. If we get rid of the vertical movement, I bet that the up and down volume will be significantly reduced. Not entirely, but it would be reduced. And then we haven't even changed the defaults here, but we could tell this to be like way bendier. And that, and the resolution of that is going to go a really long way. So that seems to have calmed it down a little bit, and now we're getting decent. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I don't know. We're bending everything around. There could be. I don't know. It's neat. It's kind of reactive. Is it realistically reactive? Like, no, probably not so much. But all this movement inside is only from the cloth. Like, there's no turbulence. It's merely from the shaking. Let's try shaking it faster, just out of curiosity. Oh, yes, yeah. See? I mean, it's more turbulent when it's shaking more. Whenever you see that little flash is because it probably bent too much and it passed over itself. There's things we could do to help prevent that. A huge thing we could do, I don't know how well it will work, but if we take this end result and say, okay, you did all your stuff, let's put it into a connect, and now that you are connected, then run a smooth. This could be, I think it'll be fine. But if I put a single, oh, yeah, okay, it's going to sneak in the top. We could fix that, but let's only do one level of smooth. Let me show you what's actually visually happening. So you can see that what I've done is smoothed out. We've gone from that shape to this shape because we're smoothing it out. So points that were overlapping each other would be less inclined to overlap each other because they got smoothed out, and that could go a really long way to fixing it. Like even just 1 or 2 levels. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we still see a bad one, but just by turning that on, those couple flashes we were getting, like I'm not seeing them anymore. You've got options like the jiggle deformer. You can add extra layers. I just saw a single pop. You can see how like the concept of simplifying that improved. Now, going back to who asked this question? Trey, I think. Yeah, Trey. You're saying you didn't like the boole, because of boole inconsistencies. Like, because if we're feeding in the proper geometry, which most of the time here we are, except when I let it super escape, and I'm shaking it really hard, so we're pushing it beyond reasonable, I would say. Like, I feel like this now would pretty much never break. Like, this should be pretty dang consistent. So I don't think the boole would break because it's very clean geometry. It's a grid passing through a cylinder. Like, it should be able to handle that. And, largely this was just an excuse to play with a new cloth. We could add some stretchiness on there. Although stretchiness might make it pass through itself more often, which very obviously is. So probably use that carefully. Keep in mind, too, if you don't like a boole, there's a potentially slower but safer way of doing it. I'm going to save that. Instead of the boole, let's use a volume. Volume builder. So we're going to take the cylinder, and I want to see where they intersect each other. Actually, that's not true. We want the original shape subtracting that one. Yeah, there we go. So that would be the liquid. Drop it way down, increasing the resolution. Mesh. And now, first of all, the volume mesher the volumes are quicker to calculate in Cinema now. So in spite of this probably being an insane poly count, you can see it's running pretty well. And we could, I can decrease that, and now it's not as much of a resolution, but throw in a smooth. And even just one level of smooth is going to help. Let's do, actually, we can throw in quite a few and round out these edges a bit. So now it's not a bool, and volumes are way cleaner and more consistent in the results that they give. Like, I'm trying to think of almost any time a volume hasn't given me the result. Sometimes I don't have a good intuition for it, but it doesn't break like a bool sometimes will. So the exact same thing, but in a volume. Keep in mind that it wouldn't be, maybe it could speed up our render, but as a general rule, let's take a look at the mesh. So this is the mesh that we're getting, and it's fine. It's pretty dang consistent overall. It's going to be popping and jumping all over the place. Yes, you could throw this into a remesh, and it's going to do a fine job of remeshing it. But it would be silly to do that because, okay, yeah, I've remeshed it, and yeah, we could even decrease it to a smaller polygon count. So you see it's like, oh, that seems way cleaner. But keep in mind that this will be, if I go forward a single frame, it's going to have to recalculate a brand new volume every single time. So it's a new volume, which means a brand new remesh. There's no relationship between those two things. So if your renderer is like really upset at a lot of polygons, like, yes, this could work, but all you're introducing is the potentially more popping and variation in between frames. Now, you'll already be getting that from the volume builder, but you'd also be getting it from the remesh. So keep that in mind. And yeah, like if I play now, like, because it's having to remesh every one of those frames, it's going to be like, that's going to be terribly slow. So I would leave it as the raw volume. Splash, 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 splash. And I can think of, vaguely, if you wanted to have the splashes not move too far up and down, you could potentially trap it in between two, like sandwich it between maybe like two planes so it can't move too far above or too far below. But even those, I almost want to make those soft bodies, or I'm sorry, make those cloth as well, because you'd want it to be able to push it out of the way, just not too much. But you don't want it just hitting a wall either, like then you'd see it. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, this is a slightly reactive liquid, but it's not that different from just doing this entire concept, but with no simulation and just a displacer. So that's always an option as well. We can turn that turbulence back on again and get some more chaos splashing around. Yeah. Does anybody have any follow-up on that? Specific question. I think we have time for one more for sure. I'm going to catch up on some chat. A couple questions over here. I do want to. Tobias was asking about the jiggle deformer, and you can, like I said, you totally can. Welcome, Dim. What's going on? It's a fun technique. Okay, cool. Yeah, it seems like I at least answered that. I'm going to check out YouTube's chat, see if there's any questions happening over there. More people talking about the redshift, rounded corners. I guess I got to learn that one of these days. Justin, if you do post a question again, just feel free to post the question again, because then I don't have to scroll up and look for it. Just don't go spamming, which everybody's really good about, so don't worry about it. So Justin's question was a technique for creating cartoon water foam. Where the shape of the ripples wrap around the shape of the given object, then expand. You can't put a link. Keep in mind, Justin, you can't put a link. But I imagine I know almost exactly what the effect would look like. So let me see if I can show a basic version of it. What's the best way to do this? We could kind of make it an arbitrary shape, which I'll do with a cube, so at least it's kind of square-ish. And my thought is making a plane. We'll be building a very limited version of this. How far can we go? Let's go 50 by 50, which is still a lot of points. We do have to make it editable because we're adding a vertex map tag. And the vertex map tag will be using fields, and the field will be based on, let's say, the cube. And we can say I want to be based on the volume. And you can see now that if we hide the cube, that essentially everywhere, hide the cube, that the interior of the cube has now filled that in. So, you know, that's fine. That's pretty much what I want. Now, that's with the volume. We could also say surface, and the surface is good because we get like an increased radius. So I could put a larger radius, which is, for our purposes here, probably better because we get this nice fade expanding out, and that's kind of what I want here. And then probably I'd want to even blur the resulting one, so I can make a copy of the vertex map, delete the cube, and feed the first one in. Very important, make sure you rename this. So now that I'm bringing the first one in, I could say, yes, you're being brought in, but you're going to be averaging your colors. So now you can see I can blur that effect more and even remap it. Okay, so how do I actually do this next step? How well subdivided is this? Not overly subdivided. I might need to subdivide more, but that's fine. So I bet a lot of this could actually be done with a formula. If I just activate a formula right now, if I just make a default formula right now and hit play, you're going to see we're going to get these rings traveling out through our current setup. Now, I know that a lot of people don't like formula. I don't reach for it too often. Because, you know, it is specific and technical. Like, there's a lot of settings we could be changing here. Now, we could do things like change the frequency. There are, you know, we have F for frequency and time. So those become two settings we do. So you can see I can remap this, and you can see how I get these loops going. And we could slow it down or even go negative. So we can say, okay, there it's going slow, and these are traveling outward. So that, you know, that's working pretty well. It's running relatively quickly. So I will select all polygons, hit US, and go four, you know, I've now got 4 times the resolution. So you can now see that I've got these ripples constantly traveling outward. Now, we could change the frequency so there's less of them. We can, what I want to do is start adding a little bit of variation on here. And we do have various methods that we could add variation onto there. So let's add a random field. I'm going to turn off the formula for a moment. So this is what we're seeing. I would like an overlaid Perlin noise that's very large. And I'm saying very large. Okay, you actually kind of see it. Do you see when I get to around this range, that's like, oh, that looks kind of neat. You can see that we're getting the overall shape, but they're kind of pushing in and out a little bit. So give this a little bit of animation speed. And now you can see how these are drifting in and out. So if that is what our input looks like, now as we feed the formula through it, you can see we get these cool variation on that, but these individual ripples should still be traveling outward. Now, if it's going too slow, keep in mind we can always go back to the speed, and I can increase this, and I can see more distinctly them traveling away. So, you know, that seems to be working well. Now, you will see that when this gets far enough away that the entire thing is flashing in between red and yellow, which does make sense. What we'd have to do to maybe compensate for that is I'm going to make another vertex map. And this one will just be, we'll name it 3. It'd probably be better to rename it slightly better things. But in this one, let's feed in that original vertex map, which looks like this. And we could, again, average it. So, you know, that's looking good. Potentially increasing the radius, which we can do if I keep on increasing that. We could then make a curve, and I can brighten this up by pulling this back. And you see I get that brighter. And now, so that's vertex map 1. And now we can bring in vertex map 2 and multiply them on top of each other. So now you'll see that we get our overall effect, but now we get this fade out as they get added on top of each other. So now this ripple is the strongest, and they fade out as they go, and that should stop us from getting that inversion on the outside. So now we get constant ripples traveling outward from the object in a kind of nice cartoony way, and yeah, and they just fade out as they go. And, you know, the entire thing is just layered up really nicely, so it's very controllable. So, having done that, I think I don't want to get a feedback loop going. So just to be safe, I'm going to make a brand new plane, and this brand new plane is going to do nothing except be the actual water. So this is just our vertex maps. This will be the actual water. And just for fun, let's make a redshift material, standard material, apply it to the water, and no roughness, no reflection. There we go. Just super shiny. Okay, so now I shall say I want to displace this with a plane effector. So plane.deform. And it's going to push upward, which might right now probably isn't. So I'm going to say the transform space is based on the effector. And deform the points. So now you can see, let me turn that on and off again. You see it's pushing them all up. And now we limit it where it's going to be pushing by dragging in this vertex map. And then the vertex map, I'm going to say based on the index. And now you can see that this is now translated from that image to a height map. And we can say how far we want that to go. So let's say not as far. So like 25. And that's already looking kind of nice. And if you were inclined, we can smooth that out. So let's grab another smoothing. That comes, it's a deformer, so we'll have it come after it. There we go. Look, a little bit of smoothing goes a long way. So just 1, 2, 3 layers of smoothing. Beautiful. And now rewind. Well, let's bring our cube in. And now you can see that this cube should be constantly sending out these nice ripples. So and in real life, you don't get constant ripples moving off of an object, but this is actually, this makes it look a little bit more like a cartoony thing. So I do like that. And it should be, let's add another vibrate tag on here because it should be based off that original, this original shape wherever we move it. So if I say, modify the position, 0.2. So now as this moves around, you see it's going to move around with it. Now it's moving around instantly, but you see it is moving it. Let's also put some rotation on there. Let's go with a full 720. Boop, 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 boop. 0.1, 0.04. So now you can see it is moving around and we get these ripples off of this object. What's cool is, I should have done it with a connect object. Actually, let's do that. That's pretty easy. So I'm going to take that and put into a connect. Don't weld. And now inside of our original vertex map, I'm going to say don't reference the cube, reference the connect. And then the second one, we're fine. But the third one, we need it again. Oh, no, we don't. We're only referencing the originals. Even better. Okay, so this connect should be reset transform. Okay, so now you can see that that cube is doing its own thing and everything's reacting to it. But I can make a second cube. And let's give it a different seed. And now we got 2 cubes. And look, both of them updated. And the system is adapting to it. It automatically adapted, so you're seeing both of them with constant ripples moving outward. So, pretty cool along those lines, very reactive. And these are both cubes, but, this could be any shape. It could be a sphere or a character. This is about where it's intersecting. Keep in mind, I did a surface, which is, well, surface and volume both can be intensive. It can take a long time to calculate if you're using a lot of polygons on the object we're referencing. These cubes are incredibly low poly, so it's going quick. So yeah, we got 2 different cubes moving around. Now I think it looks cool. It looks cartoony. To push it a little bit further, I mean, I think this is looking really nice. Let's save this as number 3. We got a couple other thoughts. 3A, water ripples on Cartoony. Okay, couple things I definitely want to experiment with here. One would be adding some delay to this. So let's view the original model and hide this one. If we add on some delay to the original input, say delay, maybe not delay, more decay. So let's add some decay, and we can add on quite a bit. Let's say like 75. It might need to be more than that. But now as these move around, it's going to leave a tail behind, and it's going to fade away slower. In fact, I'm going to go all the way to 90. So you can see that, well, if it's working, which I think it probably is, but let me push even further. 95. Every time we cut this number in half, we're essentially doubling the length. Yeah, you can definitely feel this tail behind it. So it takes a while for that to move away, and it will fade away. But that means if, let's see, if I made this one travel like faster, what we should see is more of a wake being left behind. It's still not traveling like super far, so it's kind of hard to tell. Let's make that one smaller. Although the surface area is still quite large, so making that smaller doesn't make a huge difference. But yeah, anyway, that leaves a tail behind. So that should make it a little bit more reactive. So you see, even though it moved away from this area, that's still there. But you can see it's a little extreme right now. So, you know, lowering this number so that those can fall away a little bit quicker could be nice. Now, one of the first things I ever did with fields was like these fancy or some fancy water trails, which we're not doing here. But I just want to throw out that you could like leave a little lagging trail behind it. Now, again, going back to the idea of making cartoony water lines, like, yeah, these are fun. They're a little bit cartoony. I think I would like to make them go a little bit faster. Well, even here, like, yeah, you see you make them go really quick. And then let's try making more. Yeah, slightly more subtle. I'm going to slow the speedy one down. Yeah, so you can make more ripples, but you need enough resolution on your overall model, like on this plane, in order for it to translate. So, you know, I can't push it too far, but, you know, we can go real light and we can go get a decent number. I just don't want them to disappear. But yeah, now you can see the different ripples going through. Going back to the cartoony thing, one of the things I wanted to mention is if we make a second plane and I move it up, and we move it up high, well, not too high, but if we do something like this, if I don't want to scale it beyond what our original thing is, but if you do something like this, then you should be able to even make it so that your cartoony lines could even look a little bit sketchy, where if we made this not shiny, let's see, let us, this will be not shiny, and let's make it blue, and let me duplicate that, and let's make a darker blue, and this will be on the plane. So now you can see that we've got cartoonier looking ones. We're just using the same thing. We're just letting the geometry pass through the other thing. But this could be the vertex map getting colorized and remapping things. But this just gives us really nice sharp edges. So, you know, again, we can make it look cartoony doing that. We could sharpen things up, have them fade out. But yeah, that's working pretty dang well. If you don't want if you don't want these ripples traveling all the way through perfectly, I do want to turn off this. I do want to see kind of our final result. And yeah, I gotta say, I want to see it shiny again because that looks cool. Bloop. Shiny. Okay. Right now we get these perfect ripples traveling all the way out, which could be realistic, or, you know, it could be, you know, good and kind of realistic over it. We could, these are all fading out, and we're seeing the fade kind of perfect through there. And that's because our original map here is what we're multiplying, but we could even take that and overlay it. So maybe, I guess in the simplest form, let's just make another random field, and again make it nice and big, and then I feel like you would feel it pretty well, like when you get to a good scale, like it's just going to look kind of right. And give it some speed. And now again, let's move this down maybe below the curve. Maybe that's a bad idea, but if I set that to overlay, not as much contrast as I thought there'd be. But we could potentially fix that. I'm going to increase the contrast of this random field via modifying its curve. So yeah, already you can see. So if I start pulling, yeah, now if we increase the contrast, you can see how I can start darkening up certain areas, and potentially we can even brighten up certain areas. And now, you know, the ripples aren't quite so even. If I push this really far, you're going to see a better, you know, here's, I don't want to push it this far, but do you see how like they're not perfectly traveling out everywhere? I thought this would be too far, but it's actually not bad. So let's just pull back on that a little bit. And now you can see that we get areas that are stronger and areas that are weaker. Is it more realistic? Maybe not, but is it, you know, is it more stylized? Like I'd say definitely we should be getting just areas, animation is all about contrast, and this is just going to add a little bit more contrast onto like where those things are happening. There's, you know, obviously there's tons and tons of things we could layer up on top of this. We could be having trails that displace upward. We could put a jiggle deformer on here so that it could be reacting to that. There's even potential for adding some soft body stuff on here so that as some sort of force passes through it, that the actual water would drift in one direction or another. But for the most part, I think that this is really all we need it to be. And what's cool is like the vertex map. I just had an interesting thought pop in my head. I'll save this in another version because why not? Okay, I had one thought where I want to try that subdivide trick we used in the other one, and I want to see if that works with a vertex map parametrically. Actually, yeah, it was what I was going to get into, which was going to be, as long as we modify the vertex map plane and the water plane the exact same way, we could scale this up to any size. So if I grab both of these, and I should probably go to polygon mode, if I scale these both up, like the whole rig should update. We've decreased the resolution, keep that in mind. But you know, like this rig will still work. We just don't have the subdivision on it anymore to actually see the effect, but it should just update. Now, what I wanted to try, and I don't think it will, but if I subdivide both of them, does the vertex, my question here is, does the vertex map see the modified subdivide? Or is the subdivide coming after the modify? And that's what I don't know. So let's subdivide again and again. So let me look at what the polygons actually look like. Okay, that's super dense. Maybe not that far. So does that change anything? I mean, keep in mind we just added a lot more polygons, times 4 times 4 from whatever that was originally there. I don't know if we increase the resolution or not. It's kind of hard to tell. Maybe. Is it just smoothing out the is it smoothing out something we were deforming, or is it actually seeing the subdivision? You know what? Easy way to prove it. What's the best way to do this? I need to, well, not easy, but I need to dissolve the entire thing. Dissolve. Okay, and now select all, deselect only the corner points. And delete. Okay, cool. So now I've got a single polygon. And I'll just duplicate it. Water. Delete, 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 and copy. Okay, now we can super prove if there's a thing or not, because we've only got one polygon and the vertex maps. So if we take the subdivide, and let me show you what I'm doing. If we take this subdivide, hit NB, you can see that the subdivide is saying, like, okay, you're one polygon. Okay, you're 4. And now we can just keep on increasing that kind of parametrically. And now with that count, if we see any ripples, then it's working. Then this order of operations works. If we don't see any ripples, then it doesn't. We don't, so it doesn't. Okay, it was worth the effort to prove it. Yeah, so, yeah, it's not surprising. The vertex map is seeing the geometry, not the modified geometry. And I mean, I would so desperately wish that Vertex Maps would work on parametric objects. I don't know why they can't, because once we're in the world of fields, it's like we don't care about base inputs. How often are we actually painting vertex maps? We never do. So really all we want is some data on it. So I don't see why this couldn't be parametric. It's a huge request I would love from Maxon to do. But yeah, I was just curious if that would work. And it was definitely worth the effort to see if it would. And then I'm 99% sure, but if we throw this into a connect, I don't think moving vertex maps onto a connect does anything. So yeah, this will not, yeah, you see that this is not generating anything. And that couldn't be passed down. So, well, it was worth checking. Revert to saved so we can look at the pretty splashes. Any follow-ups to this? Well, everybody seems to have liked this one, so I'm glad we... oh, thank you very much for the question, Justin. Everybody seems to like this one. And thank you for the donation, Justin. Super appreciated. So yeah, it's all just vanilla cinema. I don't think we did anything here that, you know, we could have done this like 4 versions ago, so this should be working for a while. Yeah, I love kind of painting mathematically with vertex maps. Like, that's such a simple setup, but then you modify it. You modify it some more. And even like how, you know, making the vertex maps, we could have probably built this entire setup, almost built the entire setup with only one vertex map. But it's so much better to be like, okay, here's one input, here's another one, here's both of those combined in a new way. So you can kind of like easily activate things separately, even if there is some time taken for like copying the tag to the tag to the tag. I like setting things up like this. You could even, I'm not going to push this one any further. But even here you see how it's a very blurred. Actually, why not? Let's have fun. Okay, how do I show this? So let's even go to the simplified form. So what's happening here is we've got this original shape. It's quite sharp. I guess it is decently blurred because it is from the surface, but it's decently blurred as we go to the edge. If we were to turn on, without the random, if we turn on the field, you see how these are very rounded. Kind of the thought I had was, what if we sort of tricked it where, what's the best way to show this? What if here's that vertex map brought in, and now let's bring it in again. And now that one I'm just going to say near. So that's as sharp as it gets. And now turn that off and you see we got this one. I'm going to extra blur it. I'm going to blur it even more. So this one's like super blurry, right? So if we make another copy of the first vertex map and I use that as a mask, actually, let's take this vertex map, put a mask on it, mask it with a instance of the exact same thing. This is a silly detail probably, but now we're masking that. Do I have to invert it? No, it seems to be correct. The idea here is that this one is sharp near the origin and it fades out via the vertex map to this more blurred one. So once all of that has happened, if we put actually I do think it did work. You see that this is sharp. This is very sharp in the beginning. And then it should get more rounded as it gets out to the edges. And you can see, it's hard to tell here, but once we put the formula in, you can start seeing the sharpness. If I turn off this vertex map, you see how blurred it is overall. Like very smooth in the beginning. But now we turn it on, and now smooth at the end, sharp in the beginning, and now we put that random field back on there to offset it. So it's still sharper in the beginning, but that will now fade out. That all filters back through the rest of the system. And now we turn this on, and the hope would be that we get sharper splashes coming off the immediate object and they fade out as they go. I mean, it's a bunch of work for, I mean, not a bunch of work, that was easy, but, you know, yeah, when you see these ripples come directly off the box, I think they look pretty good. So yeah, a little bit extra work there, and now we're able to add another element. So a lot of this turns into like art directing. Like, how would the client, or how would you want it to look? And, you know, hopefully, mathematically speaking, there's a way of blending and blurring and combining things to actually get the result that you want. Like even this random field, like that, we could have put a mask on that and have that be stronger as it goes further away and less strong in the beginning. Even that, you know, I'll just do that just to see it. Why not? First vertex map in as the mask again. A lot easier to see here. So now in theory, let me see the fade go on. Yeah, I think the noise is not having any effect at the very beginning. It's starting to have more of an effect as it fades out to the edge. I'm not sure why it's getting this little echo. If I rewind twice, it works. So there's just a single frame of refresh. But anyway, yeah, now, you know, tiny thing, but now, you know, more random disturbances in it as it gets further away, different noise types. But yeah, anyway, you know, it's fun. Once we get specific, you can keep pushing it further and further and further. So I'll save that one as another version, because why not? Boop, boop, boop. Okie dokie, everybody. Yeah, we're almost exactly on time. Are there any... Oh yeah, Eric says that there's a vertex map type thing in X particles that is more parametric. Tobias, thanks. We have the Rocket Lasso Slack channel, so head on over there and join. It's free. I put it on the YouTube link. And as always, thank you, Tobias, for remembering to put that there. I would never remember otherwise. Everglade saying, I will never learn to do that right. Well, I mean, it's all recorded, so you can always rewind and watch it step by step, and rebuild. And I mean, just remember the basic things of just bringing in the original model, having it fade out from the edge. And even that, you know, the basic version there goes a long way. Like, let me just show you. If we... Here's just that first map coming in. Like, so this is just dragging in the object. So if instead of deforming it with the big fancy one, let's just swap it out with that original one. And you'll still get... Like, we still get, like, this disturbance in the water. Like, these will still push up in the water. And then we'd already seen, like, you know, this is now in this deform, but if I just make, without modifying it, a formula here, instantly you can see that just combining those two things, you've got the basic version of it working. The problem, I guess the problem being we need that fade out, because this will go up to red and down to yellow, or the opposite probably. But, you know, drag in the object, put in a formula, pretty much works. So I wouldn't stress out over it. But at the same time, I know that, like, mechanically, I know how all these things work, almost from, like, a programming point of view. So I can just kind of know which things to put in, and typically they're going to work for me. Where, obviously, that could be, you know, if you're not somebody who plays a lot with fields and vertex maps, then you're not going to know which things to plug in. But anyway, super duper fun. I really liked it. That was fun to put together. I'm glad that other people seem to like it as well. That's always the best possible combination. Anyway, yeah, good live stream. This was fun. Anything else to cover news-wise or anything? No, it's all pretty straightforward. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming and hanging out for another episode of Rocket Lasso Live. I'll see you next week. If you want to get access to the scene files and whatnot, although I got to catch up on that, then you can support on Patreon and you get access to scene files and you get access to the videos early and things like that. But for now, I think that's going to cover it. So bye-bye, everybody.